Cool. Alrighty. Well, hopping right into it. So another exciting episode of Life on the Ave. Keeping with our theme of Delaware local celebrities, we have Mr. Antimo DiMeo, Bardea fame here. So Antimo, thanks for coming on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So born and raised in the greater Philadelphia area, Antimo DiMeo began working at his family's Neapolitan pizzerias as soon as he was allowed and quickly figured out what he wanted to do with his life. DiMeo went on to work with Italian's Michelin-starred chef Gennaro Esposito of Torre del Saraceno. Did I say that right? Mm-hmm. All right. I got some other big ones coming up here. On the Amalfi Coast and at Ibiza?
Yep. Eat. That's how they would say it.
Eat Ibiza. Chef Esposito inspired Antimo to bring these influences back to the United States in 2012 when he cooked at the acclaimed Arte Osteria in Wayne, Pennsylvania. In 2018, DiMeo opened Bardea Food and Drink in Wilmington, Delaware. Bardea, the Italian term for the goddess of food and drink, features DiMeo's modern interpretations of traditional Italian and Mediterranean dishes using local ingredients. In the summer of 22, the Bardea restaurant group expanded and opened Bardea Steak right next door, a boutique steakhouse for the 21st century. In addition to Bardea Food and Drink and Bardea Steak, DiMeo co-owns fast casual concepts Pizzeria Bardea and Taqueria El Chicon. I'm crushing this today.
You're doing great.
Located in downtown Wilmington's first food hall, Deco. Bardea also opened The Garden in May 2023, which is an outdoor area, fantastic spot for garden parties. So Antimo, along with his team, has been credited with many awards and nominations. Bardea earned a semifinalist nomination for the James Beard Foundation in 2019 for Best New Restaurant. They also have received 2019 Delaware Restaurant Association named Antimo a Restaurant Industry Rising Star. 2022, Antimo was nominated as the Beard Foundation's Best Chef Mid-Atlantic. And Bardea Steak was named one of Vogue magazine's most anticipated openings of 2022. So lengthy intro there. Lengthy intro. So Antimo, you've done a lot. To sum it up in the Bardea lifestyle, like what have like the last 6 years been like for Antimo DiMeo?
It's definitely been an adventure. I'd say I've definitely learned a lot. I mean, when we opened up Bardea, so we never thought it would have become what it's become today. We were just trying to open up a good restaurant where we could serve good food, make good money, be a part of the community. We had already, my family has DiMeo's Pizza on Market Street. That's been there for now probably over 10 years. So we had always been looking at the area, but we just never thought it was ready. We saw it was great for lunch. We were just always worried for dinner. And then finally we made the move. And, we have so many people who were just like, no, you're crazy. Don't do it. Like we were like, oh, we're opening up on Market Street. And they're like, oh, we're on Market Street in Philly. And we're like, no. Wilmington, Delaware. And they were, they make the face. What? Wilmington, Delaware? What are you like? Why there? What are you doing? And I always get asked why, and it's just more so I don't know. Like I kind of just fell in love with Wilmington. It's like the kind of like the best of both worlds. Like it's like a city but suburb feel all at the same time. And we opened Bardea, and honestly, what changed really everything was when we got that James Beard nomination for Best New Restaurant in the Country. It kind of allowed us, and me personally as a chef, to kind of just let loose and do what I do. And I was like, all right, so, I never thought that was a possibility in Delaware to get something like that, to even get a James Beard nomination. So once we got that, it was kind of like, all right, we're ready for liftoff. And we kind of took off from there and did what we do. And it's kind of turned into what we are today, which is pretty amazing. That's
awesome. Yeah. And what you stole my thunder a little bit with one of my questions. But we're both Philly boys, Philly background, Delco background. So you grew up outside of Philadelphia, and we talked about downtown Wilmington. I echo a lot of those same sentiments down here. Like I feel like you can kind of jump in, and it's a smaller pond down here, but it's pretty easy to. I don't want to say easy necessarily, but kind of the path to say what you want to say, gobble up other fish, whatever, become that bigger fish in that pond.
Of course.
Yeah, I've kind of experienced some of that similar stuff, and I echo, what you're saying. So, how is that? Like, you've become somewhat like a pillar, a face for Wilmington, kind of pushing, Market Street looks different 2024 than did in 2018. Like,
absolutely.
Like, how do you deal with that kind of, being like a face in Wilmington, not just a face in the crowd, but a face that stands out? You're pretty memorable.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's definitely, it's definitely a lot of pressure, but at the end of the day, I mean, I've got a great team. I just, I'm only as good as the people around me, and I've done granted, it took years to build the team we have today, but I've surrounded myself with unbelievable people. I've got an amazing supporting cast, and it's like, I may be the visionary, I may be that person who's, creating the dishes and coming up with those wow moments that people experience, but if I don't have the team to execute it, what really good is it? You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's a matter of creating something that was, number one, we really wanted to embed ourselves into the community and really give the community something like exciting to look forward to, and especially when we got that nomination the first time, it was incredible. So many people, like, just even walking on Market Street, they were like giving us fist bumps, like rooting us on. It was almost like we were, famous, like part of like being like on a sport team, you know what I mean? It's like, it was like a pretty amazing feeling. And then once that happened, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then it happened again in 2022, and for me that was more of a, obviously I was so proud for 2019 with best new restaurant, but when I got nominated for best chef mid-Atlantic, that was like more a personal goal of mine, and that was an incredible feeling. I always like to kind of like push myself and create goals, and a big goal for me was, by the time I'm 30, I wanted to, at the time James Beard had a rising star chef category, which now they've kind of changed it, so it was like I kind of went from that right into best chef mid-Atlantic, and it was something that I'm still speechless about. Something incredibly proud.
That's awesome. And yeah, so two things I want to hop in there. Definitely want to talk about the team and stuff. But Pat always yells at me whenever we do a podcast and we talk a real estate term. He's like, "Yo, dude, what does that mean?" So for us as like lay people, what does James Beard mean? Like, what's the foundation? Like, what is it? I don't know what it is.
Essentially, it's like getting an Oscar, Emmy award for actors and actresses. Same kind of thing for chefs. It's like the top prestigious honor, I'd say, outside of the Michelin Guide, where you get Michelin stars, which Delaware is not part of the Michelin Guide. Neither is Pennsylvania. There's only certain cities and states that have that, but James Beard is like right up there. So, you get nominated, and if you're fortunate enough to even eventually win, it's just like you just carry this, but besides getting the good press and obviously the good business that follows, it's more so, for the most part, any great chef, that's a goal of theirs. That's something they want to achieve. And once they achieve it, obviously it's one of those things where it's just kind of like when you win a Super Bowl, you know what I mean? You're like, wow, like you feel like, all right, I finally did it. You know what I mean? I made it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely understand that. And so it sounds like we've been nominated twice. So once as a rising industry star, and then once for best chef. Was the restaurant? So the restaurant was
first one was best new restaurant, and then the other time was best chef mid-Atlantic. We've never won yet, unfortunately, but nominated.
Gotcha. So what's it going to take for us to win?
Oh, I don't know.
What's the game plan?
It's a great question. I don't know, but we're always pushing. That's always been a goal of mine. Delaware's actually never had a James Beard winner. Okay. They've had plenty of nominees, but it's definitely on the bucket list. Yeah.
What is like the criteria, I guess, that they look for?
It's definitely changed, which it's obviously you have to have culinary talent, culinary prowess with making sure your restaurant executes great food. But it's a matter of making an impact on your community, making sure you're really giving an opportunity to not even just the community, but your staff and your team. You know what I mean? That's something I take great pride in. We have a very diverse group, and a lot of them, I don't hire really based off of experience. I hire based off of personality, charisma, work ethic. Work ethic for me is everything. I'll hire that person who's a hard worker over the experienced guy 10 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm. I like that a ton. And so, like with the James Beard, is there like a qualification process or like a review process? Like once you're nominated,
there's definitely judges come in. You never know when they come in, so it's one of those things you just find out when they release it. It's kind of like a surprise. And then once you get to the semifinal round, then I think it's like maybe a couple months later. And then there's probably judges that come in yet again, and then they go to the final round. And then from there, they decide a winner. But like I said, we haven't gotten there yet, but one day we will.
We will. We definitely will. Yeah. That's one of my favorite stories. I remember you telling me when we opened up Steak, your sommelier was like, "Hey, so and so's in the crowd."
Yeah.
So how does that make you feel? Like I know you're jacked up to cook, but when someone's in there, like...
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's always certain people that chefs get excited to cook for. You know what I mean? Like, I always say that sometimes people say, oh, we have a VIP in. And I'm always like, everybody's a VIP. You know, you want to give everybody that VIP experience. But, you know, there was one time recently where a chef it was kind of like a full circle moment for me. A chef came in from Philly, and I had gone to his restaurant when he was a chef back before I had even gone to Italy to train. And it was one of my best experiences. I still remember that dinner today. And he came in and had dinner. And obviously, I was super excited. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, he came from Philly to Wilmington, Delaware to eat my food and experience what we do as a team. And it was just, obviously, I was jacked up. You know what I mean? It was an amazing moment. But, you know, getting to meet him at the end and, you know, shaking hands and him saying everything was stellar, lots of creativity. It's a great feeling.
Love that. Do chefs have like a secret handshake with each other?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Yeah, definitely. So, we've talked about the team a bunch, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of your team. You know, everybody from top dogs all the way down to, you know, like just your everyday, you know, workers in there.
100%.
And that is one thing that we always admire is, you know, everyone in there, to me, it seems like they're having the time of their life. They're having a good time. You guys got the music going. So talk a little bit about that, like, you know, kind of building that team. Like how did it start when you were like, you know, hey, I need some help sort of deal? Like where did it, like, you know, hey, we're opening this thing in 2018. Like who was there, boots on the ground, 2018? So
in the very beginning, it was really just, it was Scott and I, my dad, and we didn't really... Did
anyone else come with you guys from Wing?
No, nobody. Yep. So the one person that I tried to bring on, but he had already made a prior commitment, was Jack, who is now pretty much chef de cuisine at Bardea. But he had, like I said, I'd already made a commitment there. So I had nobody. And I had to hire from scratch. Still one of the scariest moments in my life, because I'm like, you know, Bardea is a big restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stations at any given moment. There are gonna be 10 of us in that kitchen. And, you know, obviously over the years, it's gotten a lot more in depth and a lot more culinary driven. So we've been able to really pull a little bit more talent. But at the end of the day, you know, even building the team, it takes time. It took years. And believe it or not, it was bittersweet, but pandemic happened. We had to close down. Obviously nobody had a job anymore, right? For a couple months, we were closed. And then when we reopened, we kind of looked at it as like, all right, this is kind of like a reset for us. And we wanted to make sure we went post-pandemic with a different mindset. You know, we were always so busy in the first couple years where I didn't even have time to work on myself as a chef or as a person or as a leader. So I love reading. So in those couple months, I read so much and just tried to become a better person. And when we came back, we really became the restaurant that we are today. I mean, we're always evolving and getting better. But since our opening, I'd say in our opening 3 months, probably the only person that's still around is Amanda. So she's the only person still around. And God bless her soul. She has to put up with me all day, every day. The talk of food never stops at work. It's 24/7. At home, at work, in the car, at Costco, wherever we are, it's never stopping. But now we've been able to develop the team we want. And we have a group of people who just love what they do and they love being there. And we're all happy to be there. And, you know, we're not just a family in work. I mean, even on our days off, we hang out. You know, we have, you know, I always say work hard, play harder. So like, you know,
Sunday fun days.
Yeah, Sunday fun day. You know, we'll have sometimes a little too much fun, but it's great having that camaraderie and that family feel, because we just had a team meeting on Saturday, and I always was like, we're blessed to have the team that we have around us, because there's a lot of restaurants out there, they struggle to even hire a line cook. And if they do, you never know. There's a lot of people who just want to get the job because they need a job, you know, and that's okay. Respect to that too. But luckily we have a bunch of people who don't just work there because they get paid, but also because that's what they love to do. You know, it's their passion. So.
Yeah. And you do, like, you know, the restaurant industry as an outsider, you know, Mary Kate worked briefly as a waitress, but I'm an outsider with like no experience, and like I see like the long hours, like, you know, you guys don't open up till what, 4 or 5? Yeah, but there's like, whenever I'm down there for an afternoon meeting or something, 2 o'clock, like it's popping, like people are coming in.
No, our kitchen team gets in at 10:30. Pastry will get in like at 8 a.m. Like we don't open till 5, but we have a machine operating there, and it's obviously, you know, we don't have a small menu. We're tightening it up a little bit this year. It's a goal of mine, really trying to make it a little bit more focused. But overall, there's a lot that goes into what we do. I mean, any single steak can go through maybe like before it goes on a plate, it could be, you know, 4 to 6 weeks worth of work. You know, but when you include the dry aging process, so it's a lot. We do a lot of fermentation. We grow our own koji. Like it's pretty insane. You know, people say you're crazy. Yes, I am crazy. It's not for everybody. Restaurant industry is definitely not easy. And I always tell that anytime I've hired anybody, I'm like, I'd be lying to you if I'd say this is easy. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. You know, it's definitely hard work. And you need to have that mental fortitude to be able to withstand the long hours, it's also physical labor, you know, it's not just mental. But obviously the mental part of it is a lot too. You know, if you're not strong up here, you're just not going to make it.
Yeah, definitely. And so I echo all those sentiments, and like that's why I tell these guys, like, you know, hey, there's some nights I'll do more work between 7 and 9 at night than I did all day long. I've been up since 5 with the kids.
Exactly.
You know, it is what it is. So I definitely appreciate that. And I appreciate like how you build out your team. So obviously, you know, having a rock at home with Amanda, also in the restaurant, we can get into that a little bit. But one thing that I'm very curious about, you know, so you own the restaurants. It's you, your dad Pino, Scott. How did like Scott kind of come into the picture? Like,
so
when did you guys meet Scott?
Yeah, so we met Scott, believe it or not, in Wilmington in Delaware on Market Street through DiMeo's. We were doing this PR event, and he came in and he was, we were working on this video, and I tell you what, man, within 30 minutes, I looked at my dad and I was like, I like this guy. Like, I was like, we just clicked. We hit it off. And after that day, I was like, he left, and I said to my dad, I was like, we need to do something with him. I was like, it's hard to find the right people. I was like, this is the right person.
And you know.
Yeah, and I just knew.
Feeling.
And I was that gut feeling. And look at us now. And that was literally probably about 10 years ago now. So it was maybe 2012, so 12 years. And he's been by my side. He's always there for me no matter what. You know, we've got each other's backs. We all have each other's backs. So, and that's super important in business, to find somebody that you can trust blindly. You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to scam you, or trying to, whether it's stealing or, you know, just doing shady stuff. You know, there's none of that with us. And that's something I'm extremely grateful for, because it's not like he's just my partner in business. He's got my back, whether it's helping me through anything. You know what I mean? He's always got my back. And it's, you know, at the end of the day, we both love each other.
Bank account.
Exactly. So no, it's super important to be successful, to have that.
Yeah, definitely. And we kind of see the, you know, same thing in our business a little bit. Like, you know, listing a house is completely different than like representing a buyer. So correct me if I'm wrong. From the outside, it kind of looks like, you know, kitchen is your dojo. You got that sort of deal. And Scott kind of handles like front of the house.
Yes. So usually that's pretty much how it is. You know, actually for this year, a goal of mine that I've made is to get a little bit more involved in the dining room, just because I feel like it's just super important. There's always that stigma in restaurants where it's like front of house versus back of house. You know, luckily we're blessed. We have a great culture and a great team, so we don't really have that butting of heads. But I really want to even more so develop that. And we're, at the end of the day, we're one unified house. You know, it's not back or front. It's one unit. We're one team. And if one side is lagging over the other side, you're going to feel it. You're going to struggle during service. You know, that's at the end of the day, the chefs aren't touching the table. So if the server doesn't know that dish the right way because we didn't train them the right way, that's on us, you know? And, you know, it's a matter of making sure you get the right experience. It's that level of hospitality. And that's something that we really pride ourselves in. You know, it's not just making sure you have a good service, but making sure you're giving excellent hospitality. And that's not easy to come by, you know, and when you do come by it, it's usually, that's the elite of restaurants. And, you know, you pay a pretty penny to go eat at those restaurants, you know? So, and usually whether they're James Beard winners or Michelin star restaurants, it's something where I always like, you know, obviously one of my hobbies is going out to eat. So I like to go around whether it's in Italy or around the country, traveling to test out some of the best restaurants in the entire world. More so, also to see how we match up, but for inspiration, you know what I mean? And kind of take little notes of things that they're doing that we're not doing, or things that we can do better. There's always ways to get better. And that's something for me, I always try to push myself to try to keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And you're running a world-class organization is what I tell people whenever I talk about, Bardea. I'm like, promoting Wilmington. Hey, you got to go to Bardea, Antimo.
Yeah.
He's a world-class, it's a total experience. And it's just like little things. Like I remember being in there one time, talking with Bailey, who kind of runs a little bit of front of house and stuff. And she had the menus set out, special occasions, you come out, you sign the menus. It's a nice little touch.
Yeah, correct.
Like people remember that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about Scott? I like Scott.
No, I love Scott. No, outside of that, no, not really. He's the man. So, Scott, I told him we were going to be doing this today. He's, oh, that's awesome. Let Vince know. I said, what's up?
Yeah. Yeah. He's got such just a way, with his voice, it just really slows things down.
Yeah. He's always calm. It is. I'll say this. It's rare you see Scott lose his shit. It's rare. If you piss Scott off, that means you did something bad. Yeah. We could probably count on the fingers on my hand how many times in 5 years I've seen him lose his shit. Mm-hmm. So that's a rare thing, and that's something cool because I'm pretty level-headed, right? It's even for me, but when I'm in the kitchen, I'm not that old school kind of chef. I when I worked in Italy, it was one of those old school kind of kitchens, yelling, screaming, throwing shit. We don't do none of that. That's not. I promise myself that is never going to be who we are. But at the same time, you also need to make sure there's a certain level of integrity and a standard. You know what I mean? So it's if you tell somebody to do something a certain way once, twice, 3 times, that 4th or 5th time, you're probably going to get a little upset.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of making sure there's always that level of respect. Once you lose the respect, that's where it's all right, you crossed the line,
Correct.
So, but luckily we don't. In our organization, it's one of those things where we're blessed. We don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like he's definitely the yin and the yang. Like with you and your dad, just culturally, the Italian, the passion just comes through.
Yes, a lot more robust, a lot more, talking with the hands, being a lot louder. A lot of times, man, it's why are you screaming? I'm like,
I'm talking
I'm not
normal.
Screaming. I was like, stop telling me I'm screaming. I'm not screaming, all right? But it's we joke about it.
Whenever I'm screaming on the phone, Mary Kate's you talking to Pino?
Yeah.
Yes,
I am.
I'm talking to Pino.
That's great.
Yeah, so getting into that, little old world. So how is it being in business? You talk about the family, but you actually have your family like in the restaurant. How is working with Pino? So
in the beginning, it was a lot harder than it is now. And a lot of it was because in the beginning, I didn't really have the culinary chops to do what I do now, So in the beginning, it was more so I was the third wheel and my dad was in the kitchen and Scott was in the front. And then when Bardea happened, I was able to I was given the opportunity to run the kitchen. And like I said, once the James Beard nomination thing happened, it was all right, here's the keys, you're taking it over. So luckily there's never anything where he's coming to me oh, you need to do this like this, or you're doing this wrong. He knows that I got it under control. But I've earned that, it's not just and I can put my feet in his shoes and be all right, well, what if I have, what if I try to think, what if, let's say we're a chef and she's I want to run Bardea's kitchen. And I'm all right, well, I'm going to be like a hawk, because that's my baby, right? Yeah. So I try to think about it like that too. It's not so easy to be oh, well, it's my son or my daughter. It's no big deal. No, if anything, it's I'm going to be more on top of it because I'm going to try to make you the best out of everybody here. I want to make you the best that you can be. So it's a matter of just trying to handle that pressure, and I always say pressure makes diamonds, right? So it's that's what you got to be. And it's always having that mentality to always try to want to be the best. We got to clip that. Pressure makes diamonds for sure. Yeah. My sales manager, he's been talking about pressure makes diamonds for a while. Oh, so love that. Yeah. Love that you just dropped that. That is one of my favorite stories. I heard it from Pino a little bit. How was that? It seemed like it was a little meeting of the minds, grew a little hair on our chest and said, hey dad, I'm going to take over the kitchen. Oh, yeah, absolutely. How was that? Oh, it was, so we were actually, I'll never forget when it happened, we actually were in Spain, right? I was working in that restaurant in Spain, and he came to visit, vacation, visit, a little bit of both, whatever. And I remember I was at that time, I was all right, by the end of that experience, I'm like, I know I'm ready. Like I want to, even though I was young, I mean, it's crazy. I was 23 years old and I knew I was ready to run a kitchen, which is crazy to say out loud, but I just felt it in my gut. I'm like, no one's going to tell me no. Like, I'm not going to take no as an answer. So I remember we sat down and I was just like, I pretty much was just like, listen, this is what I want. And I was like, not in a mean way. I was just like, if you're not going to give me the opportunity, I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to get the opportunity because I know I can do it. And I think once he saw that confidence in me and that he knew I wanted it and I was ready for it, that's when he was like, all right, time is yours. You know what I mean? And like I said, then once Bardea happened and the nominations, it just kind of all leads up to that where it's like he doesn't have to worry about anything in the back ever at all. You know, maybe a couple things sometimes he'll pick up on stuff like, random stuff. And whether it's, I'm one person at the end of the day. Like we all say we don't miss anything, but you're going to miss a couple things. Correct. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we got on any given day between both restaurants, like just in the kitchen, there's like 20 people. Like to be able to manage 20 people at one time is not easy. Yeah, it's not easy. And you never know. Like
20 people doing 20 different things.
Yeah, and we're not talking about robots here. We're humans, right? So maybe somebody's having a bad day or, you just never know. And each person you need to manage a little differently. Everybody has their own personality. So it's like, I know I can push, for example, I can push Jack differently than I can push Billy or push any of my other chefs. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, but it's not even just a matter of like, we say, we have sous chefs and chefs. Like I'm lucky, I'm blessed that I have, like on Saturday, we sat and had a meeting of the minds in our kitchen. And it's like, there's so many quote unquote chefs at that table. There's so much potential. They're all hard workers. You know what I mean? So, and each one of them, I have a great relationship with one-on-one, but I have to push each one of them a little bit differently to get the best version of them to come out.
Yeah, definitely. It's very similar in like what we got going on. So, every time I come down to the restaurant, I love coming down to the restaurant. Mary Kate's like, what are you going down to Bardea again for? Yeah. I'm like, babe, it's an experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it. Go have an espresso at Pino. That's what I'm going to do.
That's an experience in and of itself right there.
Yeah, and I just love that. And like having, like you have a presence, your dad obviously has a presence, both fashion sense.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Workout sense. He's got the hair.
Know. You already know.
Yeah. So like having, that person there to like it seems like Pino's has very much embraced his role,
100%,
which is, I'll say like kind of director of keeping, special balls in the air.
Yeah. Networking. I mean, that's his specialty. He loves being out in the dining room, connecting with people, meeting new people. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I'm always usually in the back. It's hard, whether I'm expediting or coming up with new dishes or whatever it may be. It's rare that I'm not really ever roaming the dining room. You know what I mean? Something with time I would like to be able to do a better job of, but sometimes it's hard because I like to focus on every single dish that's going out.
Yeah. And like I get that sometimes. Like Mary Kate's like, hey, like what are you doing? Like at a networking event or something like that. I'm like, babe, like we're making relationships here that are going to keep people coming back to us.
Correct.
Because I've been in there on a Friday, Saturday night. Scott's busy, you're busy, you guys are slammed sort of deal. I just walked into the back now and just tap you up.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, but I love just watching Pino, just work the room, work the bar, make sure, hey, everything going good and stuff like that. So, like your guys' dynamic, is just fantastic. And that just kind of permeates through, every level of
100%
of the restaurant. So one thing that I've loved that you guys have been doing recently, you guys have been highlighting, your different chefs, your different employees who are working with you guys.
Yep.
How has that been like, watching a guy come in, from nothing, just a hard worker and just like make themselves something?
It's an incredible thing to watch. I mean, a lot of them I have that one-on-one relationship with. So, a lot of them started from the bottom and worked their way up. I mean, like whether they started off as a dishwasher or a fry cook, it's amazing, and for me, to be able to watch that growth happen, like have front row seats, that's one of the things I'm most proud of. Like, I'm going to be proud if I create an excellent dish, but I'm more proud to be able to show these guys a little bit of what I know and share that magic with them, so to say, you know what I mean? And for them to be able to really soak it up like a sponge, a lot of them are young, so they've never really been in any other kitchen of this magnitude or this level.
Which I feel like that's something you have to do in the restaurant industry. You
Absolutely.
have to start from the
Absolutely.
bottom.
But I mean, granted, like sometimes if you have a little more experience, for example, I'm not going to, start you off in the dish pit. Obviously, we all need to know how to wash dishes, right?
Yeah,
but like, some of them, one of them, his name's Carlos. He's just turned 21. He started with us, I guess, when he was 17 or 16 maybe. And he started off as a dishwasher. But, I know when someone has good work ethic. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. And one day, of course, all our prep cooks didn't show up.
Yeah.
So I said, I went up to Carl. I said, yeah, today's your day. Here, you're off the dish pit. You're going to work with me. And he started prepping with me every day, 5 days a week, every single day. And he just kept absorbing that knowledge. He just kept getting better and better and better. And to the point where then I went to put him on the fry station. Then from the fry station, I taught him pasta. Then from pasta to the grill and the ovens. And then all of a sudden now we moved him over to Bardea Steak onto a station where it's more like kind of more garnishing and finishing, more like a little bit more, a station that requires a little more finesse. That's what makes all the food look sexy and beautiful. But just seeing, that's just one person, even somebody like Billy or Brendan, these younger guys who, Amanda had worked with, for example, the two of them, they came over from having worked with Amanda, and they didn't really have experience working in this level type kitchen, and they got the work ethic. They come in and kind of the same thing, from fry to pasta to grill, and it's just awesome to see young kids who have that determination to want to be great. Because at the end of the day, I can only teach you so much, but if you don't have that determination, the will to want to be the best, it's going to fall on deaf ears. You know what I mean? So it's very important you have the right people that want to actually be taught and get great.
Yeah, and that osmosis is just like so huge, because like I try to tell these guys, they're like, hey, how do you do it? I'm like, you just got to follow me around.
Correct.
I can't really explain how I do it. I just have a method to my madness that works for me.
Correct.
You got to find out what works for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you also got to get lucky. Like, in at least where I worked in Italy, it's not like they're going to hand it to you, on like just give you the knowledge. They want you to, so quote unquote, like steal that knowledge. You got to be the one, like you said, follow and be smart and pick up on it. It's not like someone's going to wave me over when we're worried about doing, a 2 Michelin star experience. They're going to say, oh yeah, come over here. I'm going to do this sauce. I'm going to teach you how I make it perfect. No. They don't want to teach me how to make it perfect. A lot of them, it's still very old school. They're like, I don't want to teach anybody any of this stuff. There's no recipe books. You just got to learn it and remember it. To the point where I had created a notepad on my phone. Anytime I was doing anything, I would just take out my phone right there, and write it down. Like, otherwise, how are you going to retain the information? And luckily we don't. That was something from after experiencing it there, I made a point to never want to have that culture in our restaurant. I'm the opposite. Like, you want the recipe book? Here, you can take the recipe book. Because for me, it's not the recipes that make us great. We make us great. Yes. So, and it's a matter of making sure people understand that. So it's not like, oh, that sauce is why Bardea is the best. No, it's not. It's the team. It's that experience, that hospitality, the quality. That's the other thing. A lot of people we're not a cheap restaurant. I'm never going to hide behind that. But at the end of the day, we buy ingredients that usually are more expensive than a lot of the restaurants around us. So it's hard, you really never want to, any successful restaurant, you never want to run over a 30% food cost. So if I'm getting something that's, let's say, $30 a pound, I have to charge what I need to charge, to make sure that we're in that bracket. So it's not easy, but, luckily we built that following, and people come because they know that they're going to experience something unique and different, and something that's going to blow their minds.
Yeah, and it definitely does, and it starts, I guess with you, permeates throughout the team. And I tell with these guys, like, hey, if you need something, like don't ever hesitate to hit me up. And I love, like, whenever I'm with you, like, they're calling you, hey chef, like, sauces will be done in like 10 minutes or so. Like, where do you want it at?
Yeah. And they're like, here, come taste it. Like, they know, and like, it's even if I make a sauce, I grab everybody to try it. Like, it's not, that's what I try to always say to people. It's not like one standard for me and a different standard for everybody else. It's one standard for everybody.
Correct. And like, one of my stories going back to, started from the bottom, like as an owner, like there's, some things that maybe some other people like look down, but one of my other favorite stories is just like two stories. Is number one, being in there, I'm like, hey dude, what are you doing? You're like, I'm looking at cows in Texas.
Yeah, that's a real story. That's a real story.
Yeah, I was like, what? You're like, yeah, I'm picking out, our 30, 40 cows that we're going to get for this year or whatever. So I love that one. And then the other one was, I believe you were going up to the airport to pick up meat.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
Not currently, but we were, just because we changed the menu. The menu's always changing. Yeah. But yeah, we're crazy. We're crazy like that. So I always love challenging myself too. Like we were using, more of the exotic meats like kangaroo and ostrich and elk, and people are like, why kangaroo? Why ostrich? And it's simply just because I wanted a challenge. I never. You think I went somewhere that I ate kangaroo or elk or ostrich? No, but I wanted to try it. And it's something. It's funny because once we took it off the menu, some customers would come in asking for the ostrich and the kangaroo, and I'm like, wow, I was shocked. You know what I mean? Like that's first. Okay,
left an impression.
It just shows like people want. I feel like people come to our restaurants to experience something different. You can get veal, pork, beef, duck, lamb in a lot of restaurants, but it's rare you get something that's different like that.
Yeah. So. I love that. So we've hinted at it a few times. I'm very curious. So Italy, like kind of going over to Europe, Italy, Spain. So you graduate high school 2011?
2010.
2010, Methacton High School?
Yep.
So graduate from Methacton and then what?
So graduated Methacton, and like my entire life, my family was actually like, you are not going to work in the restaurant industry. They did not want that. You don't want to work in the kitchen. It's long hours, like that negative stigma that a lot of the hospitality industry gets. So I went to Drexel, wanted to go to Villanova my entire life. Couldn't get in, right? Got to Drexel. And I still say to this day, probably the only good thing that came out of Drexel, which is, I met one of my best friends. He's like a brother from another mother to me. His name's Bill. And like, that's the only good thing that came out of Drexel for me. Outside of like, experiencing the city life and living there. But like I'm in Drexel, and I found myself in business class because, the first year was all like the required courses. And then finally, like near the end of the first year, get my first business class. And I find myself reading about pizza dough and bread dough in business class. And I was like, that, like kind of like I had that aha moment. I was like, that night, I'll never forget. I got home. I said to my parents, I was like, listen, I don't want to go to college anymore. And they were like, oh no, they both yelled, for an hour. No, that's not an option, blah, blah, blah. And I literally pleaded my case. I was like, you are wasting your money sending me there because I'm never going to go sit in an office. It's not what I want to do. I said, like, at the time, I didn't think being a, high level chef was what I wanted to do either, but I knew I wanted to do something with food. And it kind of grew. I dropped out of college my second year. And a little bit after, we opened up DiMeo's on Market Street. Yeah. And that's when I first started playing with pizza doughs and fermentation. I mean, I was obsessed. I tried so many different doughs, so many different flours. And it got to the point where finally we started using this 00 flour. His name's also Antimo. It's Antimo Caputo. It's a famous Neapolitan flour. But long story short, we set up a trip to go to Naples to go meet where we get our flour, our tomatoes, our buffalo mozzarella. And I go to the flour mill, and I saw a picture by the end of the whole tour. We're talking, and I saw this picture of him with a 2 Michelin star chef who happened to be Gennaro Esposito, right? And I was like, essentially, I was like, is there any way that you can somehow get me in to work there? And he was like, oh, me and Gennaro, we're like this. We're like family. He's like, I'll make a call, right? He calls me literally the next day. He's like, I got you a reservation there. Just talk to him, right? We had a whole, probably 14, 15 course dinner. One of the best dinners I still remember it. My entire, it was me, my dad, and my uncle went. Then we sat outside. Gennaro sits down. He lights a cigarette, and he just looks at me. He was like, listen, Antimo told me that Antimo Caputo. He's like, Antimo Caputo told me, you want to work here? I was like, yeah, I do. He's like, all right, well, Antimo's like brother to me, so you can start tomorrow if you want. I was like, oh, well, I mean, thank you. I can't start tomorrow. I got to go, to the States and get my clothes and get a luggage and stuff like that. So, but yeah, long story short, that was how I got into that restaurant. And I got there, and I met one of my other amazing friends of a lifetime. His name's Graziano, and we still talk all the time. He actually still works there. But it was there where that kind of, I always say, that built my foundation. Yeah. That was like a culinary boot camp. It was 6 days a week, 18-hour days. We would be in the kitchen. We start at 10:30. We would be in there at 8:30 or 9. Yeah. And we would work all the way till 1 in the morning. It was absurd. But it built me. It gave me the bones that I have today. Because it's I always preach, being a great leader, right? And you gotta, I always talk about that Mamba mentality, right? To put in the work. You can't teach hard work.
No.
You know, like you could be born with incredible God-given talent, but if you don't put in the work, that person that out hustles and outworks you is going to be better than the person who just has the talent. And it's something that I learned there, just working all those hours. And then I came back. The Bardea had opened up in Wayne, and then I went to Spain. And then after Spain, I was like, because I remember I was working there, I was like, you know, within like by the end of the first week, I was like smooth and flowing in the kitchen. Like I felt like part of the crew, you know. I didn't feel like somebody that didn't know what the hell they were doing. And that's when I was like, all right, once you gain your confidence, then it's lift off from there. So it's like, you know, I got the confidence. That's when I was like, all right, I want to run a kitchen now.
Love that. So you went over there, what, 18, 19, and you were there for 4 years?
Yeah, I was there. No, in Italy it was like a year and a half. Spain, I was there maybe it was like 3-4 months. Yeah. But I don't know, a year in Italy with that working schedule is like 3 to 4 years.
Correct.
So it was definitely a lot.
Yeah. And were you like, just out of curiosity, like obviously I know you speak Italian. Yeah. Was it like a different like Italian? Like was there any like language barrier there?
No. Well, it's funny because they called me when they first down. They forget they called me like the American, right? Because they knew that somebody from America was going to be there, and I let them like talk, and then finally I just chimed in Italian, and then they just all started laughing. But I speak dialect, right? I don't speak like classic Italian. There were some words in some kitchen words that I had never heard about because my grandparents always spoke to me in dialect. But once they knew I spoke dialect, then they would just talk to me in dialect, and it was fine. So it wasn't too hard. Not much of a barrier there.
Yeah, I love when you and your dad speak Italian around me. I'm like, they're talking about me right now.
Absolutely.
It's too funny. So we mentioned it a little bit. So evident that your upbringing and family has definitely inspired you. So your meatballs are actually inspired by your grandmother. You want to talk about them a little bit and any other dishes?
Yeah, I mean, it's my Nonna Maria, my dad's mom. It's huge inspiration on how I cook in general, not just the meatballs. I mean, there's so many times I'll be thinking of a new dish and I'll be like, what are things that I remember growing up that I ate? And we had an incredible relationship, you know. God bless her soul. You know, I miss her so much. We lost her, unfortunately, during the pandemic, but like she would always cook for me. Oh, every Sunday I would go there. I mean, so many times, anytime I'd have a bad day, I would just call her. We just had that tight relationship. But I still have like memories of like walking in through her front door and just smelling the sauce and the meatballs and stuff like that and the brajol. And there's just certain things you just never forget. But there's a lot of dishes that maybe it's like and I wouldn't say technique because, you know, it's more rustic, you know, I'm not cooking. Like sometimes she'll do stuff. I'll be like, oh, what's the recipe? And she'll be like, oh, a handful of this, handful of that. There are no recipes, you know, but it's more so just a matter. I'd say the limoncello, I would say the limoncello that we make is also something that she used to make. So that's based off of that too. But she's definitely a huge inspiration in a lot of my cooking. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have those same memories. My great grandmother was right off the boat Italian. And Algene DeVico, and like she had the kitchen in the cellar. Yeah. The kitchen up top was just, you know, for show. Right. The kitchen in the cellar is where it went down.
Oh yeah.
But the whole house smelled.
Oh yeah, she would line her stove with aluminum foil because she can't get it dirty. You know, she's crazy old school Italian. You know.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anyone else in your life kind of inspired you to cook, or any other dishes named after? Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, obviously, I just grew up in the industry, so even just being in pizzerias, the pizza shops. Obviously not of any, like, that was more, you know, slices, New York style stuff, but it was, for me, I think growing up in the business was a huge part of why I'm where I am today. But it wasn't really until I got to college. Like, it's crazy to think up until college, I never said I wanted to be a chef. Yeah. So sometimes I'm always like, that's one regret. I'll say to Amanda, well, my one thing I'm upset about, just imagine if my parents would have pushed me to want to be a chef. I said, I would have been working from like 13, like, you know, like knowing me, how I am. Like, you know, I love that shit. So.
That's awesome. So you hinted at it at the beginning. How is it kind of like crafting a menu? So on your menu, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it says 4.0 right now.
Yeah, now it's maybe 5.0. Yeah, 5. Yeah. I think we're at 5.
Yeah, but kind of going through that, like what, and you talked about, you know, kangaroo, ostrich, like, you know, what is that process like? Like, I feel like, you know, there's a whole like artistic, like, you know, And we talked about, maybe trimming it down a little bit sort of deal.
Yeah, so like a big thing right now, we're just trying to make it a little small, a little tighter, a little more focused. That's definitely been one of my weaknesses. I love doing new dishes, but sometimes I spread ourselves thin for no reason, right? So it's one thing that I finally let sink into my head. Just got to make the menu a little smaller. But outside of that, the process really, it depends. There's so many variables. Sometimes it might be inspired by some sandwich I ate down the street, right? Or maybe it's something we ate on a trip to Chicago or Miami or wherever. We love traveling, right? Even if it's just like we take 3-day trips. People are like, oh yeah, how was your vacation? I'm like, it wasn't vacation, it was 3 days, but thanks. But we'll go, and the creativity is, you have to work at creativity. Some people think, you're just born creative. Some people are born more creative than others, but at the end of the day, you need to work towards it. And I definitely I've been trying to really push even more so on our team to have to chime in, and really, everybody has different passions, I have one chef's name's Brent. He loves pasta. That's what he thinks breeds, loves pasta. He extrudes all the pasta right now for us at the restaurant. So now I want to do a new pasta dish, and I went up to him, I'm like, Brent, just has homework for the weekend, come up a couple dishes that you think maybe we can play with. And then they'll do a dish, and maybe we'll talk about it, and they always say, well, how do we make it Bardea? Because Bardea somehow spins it and makes it sexy and creative, right? So maybe he'll give me a couple elements, and I'll be like, oh, maybe we do, we'll change this ingredient here or present it like this, and all of a sudden it's like
the tableside sauce pour.
Yeah, tableside sauce pour, so it's like those little things that kind of make us who we are, and it's a matter of just testing out the dishes, tasting them, making sure that, they're up to our quality and our standard. But there's no really, it's not like I follow a guideline. Oh, I need a new menu item. I'm going to go down this list and figure out how we're going to create a new menu item.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so I imagine, how do you get it out of here? Is it just your notes app? What's your kind of process?
On my app, on my phone, it's either notes. Sometimes if there's a lot
of
things.
Is your camera roll just pictures of food?
Yeah. Oh, it's bad. Yeah, that's literally what it is. And then, or I'll just I'm sometimes a little more old school, just pencil, paper, writing it down. It's there's definitely my notes is the biggest thing, but I'll just write down ingredients, or I'll just say we're now we have a tasting menu at steak, which I love, and that's always kind of changing. And I'll be like, all right, what do I want the opening snacks to be? And I love miniature version of things, right? Yes. We have our famous burrata Pop-Tart that we do, right? Yeah. We just did this mini burrata Pop-Tart. It was these cutest little friggin' mini burrata Pop-Tarts. I'm like, how can I make that an opening canopy snack on this tasting menu? You know what I mean? Little things like that. And it's they make an impact, we'll do our first course right now. It's a mini shrimp taco or a mini lobster tostada, and they're just jam-packed with flavor. And you do a whole tasting, and people will be like, oh, that was my favorite thing. I'm like, wow, the first thing you ate was your favorite. And that resonates with me, because I'm like, you do all this work for these composed dishes, and sometimes all you need is miniature version of cool things, whether we do our play on a Hot Pocket or on our play on a tostada. We're always doing spins on childhood classics.
I like that. And one of my other favorite times down there was we were testing out bread.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, I remember. It was when we were doing the cube bread.
Cubed bread.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that was awesome. That was, Amanda, again, deals with me and my crazy ideas. So, over COVID, I became obsessed with laminating, which is the process of how you make croissants, right? These doughs. And I'm like, oh, we're going to do this. We were we got to do this bread. And we had thought of the idea. And that was on the menu for a while at steak. Now we do bread basket. The menu's always evolving, but bread is one of my first loves in the kitchen. So
yes. Yeah.
It's, anything with fermentation, I guess, I kind of love.
Yeah. No, I loved it because I was down there and we just looked at the bread for 10 minutes. And I was are we going to eat this?
Yeah, I remember this. I don't even think
we ate it. Vince, you get a slice?
Yeah, I just stared at it, smelled it, looked at the air
taking
pockets.
Pictures of it and stuff.
I remember that. That was funny.
That was hilarious. So, going back to it, you talked about, creating that VIP experience, which I think everyone definitely gets. And we do have, some VIPs there, one person, who we've talked about a couple times, before, but, you have a regular Mr. Johnny Weir.
Johnny Weir. Yep. I love Johnny. Yeah. He's the man. He's the man. He's always in.
He's always in, yeah.
Great person.
So we love Johnny, yes. So we'll definitely be tagging Johnny in a clip, getting him to repost.
Love you, Johnny. I love him.
Yeah, and so what's it like, when you have a more so famous person like a Tobias Harris come in? Kind of what's that experience like, having the stars come in?
It's just really cool. They more like you kind of get like in shock. You get starstruck, a couple minutes, and then I'm like, all right, right down to it. At the end of the day, it's like, even when Tobias Harris came in, it was just, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, he came to Wilmington again. He came to Wilmington. Look how many restaurants are in Philly, but he came here and he loved it. And then I'll never forget, we took a picture together, and the next day, I literally took a screenshot because I was so happy. He started following me on Instagram. He started following me. I couldn't believe it. He started following me on Instagram. And then he messaged me on Instagram, to me and Scott in the group on Instagram, asking for the photo that we took so he could post it.
Nice.
Because that's how much he loved the dinner. And then he posted the picture of the three of us on his story. And I'm just like, that's so cool. And like someone's like, well, it's like you got to believe like you're a star in your own kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, and I was that kind of like resonated. I don't know who told me that, but I was like, it kind of stuck because I'm like, all right, I see what you're saying, but it's cool. Even like when Joe Biden came in, like that was obviously that was a big deal. He wasn't president at the time, but vice president, whatever. And it's like whoa, what I mean? Like you just it doesn't really soak in, and then you see him sitting, and then all right, you just treat him like any other guest. So at that point, you don't want to change what you do just for that person. You just got to show them what you do.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anyone on your hit list? Like there's people I want to sell houses to. Like, is there anyone you want to cook for?
Honestly, not really. I don't really have a list like that, to believe it or not. I know. Like, there's maybe some chefs that are not even in the U.S., but outside of the U.S. But I don't really know. I just love cooking, for whoever it may be.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, if there's anyone in there, let us know. We'll tag them.
Perfect. I'll think of it.
We'll hit them up. So we got a lot going on. Bardea Steak. We opened up the garden. Got the pizzeria going. Like what's next? For Antimo, DiMeo, and Bardea. Like do we project out the next 6 years? Like how do you kind of look at the future?
In the more immediate future, we have a couple projects that we're working on, a little more local, which we're excited about. Nothing set in stone yet with that, but we're definitely working on it. Definitely a 5-year goal of mine is, I haven't been shy to tell anybody. I want to get a Michelin star. It's a goal of mine. I want to go, whether it's to DC or Florida, and open up some small little restaurant. That's like a dream of mine. I've been dreaming about it. It's funny because when I worked in Italy, I was like, I never want to have a Michelin star restaurant because I saw all the stress. But that was because they ran it like that. I want to do my version of a Michelin star restaurant with my team, and I would just love to create something where, with the team I've built at Bardea. This is always going to be home base for me, like I live in Trolley Square. What we've built is incredible. I'm never going to leave. But I love traveling. So I would love to be able to open some in DC. We always go to DC, Florida. I love the warm weather. And I've always said, like, I would love to open up a restaurant near the water. And it's just something for me. It's just a personal goal of mine. So that's definitely right at the top of that list for the next 5 years, opening up a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah. You look pretty good on the beach.
Thank you, Vince. I try. I've been following the workout routine you sent me.
Love it. Yeah. So wrapping up here, just a last few kind of personal questions.
Yeah.
We talked about Nana, but big inspirations. Anyone that you kind of like look up to, either in the industry, outside the industry. We mentioned Kobe. Shout out Kobe.
It's fun. Yeah, honestly, I always mention so many things about Mamba mentality and Kobe Bryant, just because I love how he's just, anytime he talks or would talk about he would wake up at 5 a.m. and, shoot God knows how many shots. And his thought process was like, well, if I can put in triple the amount of work when someone's usually doing this amount of work, naturally over time, you're just going to get better. And that's kind of my mindset with everything. Because a lot of times people will be like, how do you work the whole day? Some people make fun of me because I'm like, I have a tried true routine. I'll wake up, I have a shake, I go to the gym, come back, I shower, go to work. And I do it over and over and over again. And that's like my routine, 5 days a week. And, on Sunday, we'll like to have Sunday fun day. But then Monday, we recently opened up Bardea Food and Drink on Monday night. So even though I'm not working per se in the restaurant, it's still like a work day. Today we had a meeting in Philly. And I was like, in the meeting, I try to not use my phone. It's funny, I looked at Amanda, I'm like, look how many, scroll. I got like 20, calls, texts, everything. It's, all work related, but it's part of owning a business. You can't run away from that. So it's one of those things where, he's always been an inspiration to me. I just love the way at the end of the day, you just do it, and not to sound like Nike, but like you just got to do it.
Correct.
At the end of the day, if you don't do it, you're coming up with an excuse as to why you can't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not going to go to the gym today because I have to do this, and that. Well, no, you can go to the gym today. You just don't want to go to the gym today. And you're just you're just trying to make yourself feel better.
Yep.
And that's why for me, I always try to use that inspiration, even in the restaurant. I'm just like, from in the beginning, when I said, it's not easy what we do, but you just got to do it.
Correct. Yeah. I've with our success over the past few years, definitely, thankful, grateful for it and stuff. People are like, what's your secret? I'm like, I show up every day.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hard work. Like I remember when we first met for with the house that I got. I'm like, look at it, it's just amazing. Just like you get just some individuals who we believe in ourselves and we just put in the work.
Yeah.
And here we are today, which is amazing.
That's
on this podcast.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I know we got you the nice new kitchen in your house. Like, what does a normal dinner look like? At home for you? Yeah.
Oh man, normal dinner.
Do you ever just eat normal food?
Yeah.
I know
sometimes.
You guys hit me up one time. We're like, hey, what's the best cheesesteak around here? I'm like, you guys probably make the best cheesesteak around here.
No, I mean we had normal dinner. Like yesterday, it was Amanda's sister's birthday. She made a coconut chicken curry. That was really good. Bunch of vegetables. We always change it up. I'm Italian. I love pasta, obviously. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of pasta. But recently we went on a little couple week. We took 2 weeks off from the gym, and we were like, we're gonna eat whatever we want, do whatever we want for 2 weeks. It was just good mentally to do that. And we were in Florida, and we were at the Keys, and there was not really any restaurants to go down there. So we went to this gourmet. We had this delicious gourmet burger from Wendy's. It was my first time having Wendy's in my entire life. Believe that.
Shout out.
Yeah, I had a Baconator and had a salad. But yeah, no, it was just funny because people were like, you never had Wendy's? What is wrong with you? But yeah, Vay always jokes that I grew up under a culinary rock. I'm like, yeah, I guess you could say that. There's just a lot of things that I just don't know about. Obviously, I grew up with Italian parents, so I'm not the one eating Lunchables or doing pre-packed meals. I'm the one eating pasta at school for
hand-rolled meatballs.
Yeah, exactly. Meatballs and sausage and brajol. That
I love it. I love it. Real quick, favorite food?
Favorite food? Probably pasta, pizza, Italian food. I love Mexican food. I love all food. It's so hard. Yeah, I love food. I love food. Period.
Yeah. Cool. So wrapping it up here. Anything you wanna, anything else you want to discuss? Anything else you want to shout out?
No. Shout out to my team. That's it. I love you guys. Without you guys, we're not who we are today. So if anything, I'm able to sit here on this podcast because of my team. We're about, I don't know if it's 5:00 right now. We're opening for dinner service. So hope we got a great dinner service tonight. But yeah, definitely shout out to my team every day.
That's awesome. Well, shout out, to Antimo, the Bardea, the whole crew, the whole fam.
Absolutely.
We love you guys. We love what you're doing here in Wilmington, and super excited about the future. Super excited about what you guys got going on currently. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. This was Life on the Ave with Mr. Antimo DiMeo, and appreciate it, and looking forward to sitting down here this time next year, seeing what we accomplished.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
No problem.